you may have heard other toy YouTubers talking about the idea that Marvel and DC's licenses may be flip-flopping, going to other companies instead of Hasbro and McFarlane. You've heard them talk about it. Now it's finally time to hear your favorite creators talk about it, the Strong Collectors. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Strong Collectors Podcast. I'm your host, Dakota, here with my co-host, Jordan. And like I said, we're going to be talking about the rumors swirling and spiraling around the toy community that the Marvel and I think the greater Disney license is running out on Hasbro in the next year or two. Same with the McFarlane license, or McFarlane having the license to DC. There's been a lot of speculation, so, Jordan and I love to jump on the speculation trains. We've kind of done videos, or at least a video similar to this, where we talked about what if McFarlane got the DC license, or the Marvel license, way back. This was probably 2 years ago.
Yeah,
so
maybe.
You can go back and watch that, but it's time to do a little updated thought process on that. So I think this started with Bobby Valla. I don't really watch any of his stuff usually, but when something big stirs up the community like this, you got to check it out. So this was, I think he was the one that kind of started these rumors. And then other creators, I think I've watched Milk Mustache do a video on it. But what are kind of your initial thoughts on the license switcheroos, or coming up to maybe even just stick with the same companies?
Right. Yeah, I thought a lot of the points he made were actually pretty interesting in the sense of, like, if a company has the license for X amount of time, if a new one were to get it, it's like we've never done it before, so how can we be different? How can we kind of do new stuff or innovate in some way? Which I think is a cool idea, just because it does sort of promote, okay, how can we be different, or what things could we maybe think of that people who have been working on them maybe haven't thought of yet, or doing things differently. So I did think that was a cool idea. I think right off the bat, I would not mind if Star Wars went somewhere else. I guess I don't really do Star Wars so much anymore. I tried with the Black Series Dakota, and it just really never landed for me. So I could see another company
but it's not like you don't want to collect Star Wars. Like you want Star Wars, but Hasbro's just not doing it the way you want it, right?
Yeah. I mean, there were some figures. Again, I think I wouldn't be like buying tons and tons of them, but if I were like, I want a core or a couple figures, I would like to have them. But I never really felt like the Black Series really did it for me. So I could see that improving. I'm a little more hesitant with the idea of the Hasbro switch with Marvel, Dakota, because I think generally we're pretty happy with Hasbro and what they're doing with Marvel. I mean, I think in that video it was framed as like, would McFarlane get it, and then would Hasbro get DC? I mean, I think that's also assuming if Hasbro were to lose it, then it goes to McFarlane. We don't even know if that is like the progression that would take. He made a good point with McFarlane doing the statues. I mean, is that him like trying out Marvel, and then they'd say, oh, maybe we can go with him? Yeah,
shoe in the door. I think so. I guess I can see already there's going to be people in the comments, and they've been in the comments for as long as we've had comments, that Marvel, like they hope that Marvel loses the license, or they hope that Hasbro loses the Marvel license because they're sick of old body molds being put out, and people think that McFarlane should lose the DC license because they're sick of the ball joints and the weird proportions and the 7-inch scale. Do you think, looking at those two companies, like, do you think they've done what they need to do to show the overarching like license that they still deserve to have them? Like, has Marvel Legends done enough in the last like year to be like, no, we're still like a strong brand for this IP? Or like same with McFarlane, like, has he shown enough with DC that he should keep the line?
Yeah, I think Hasbro for sure. I mean, I'm definitely way more partial, of course, to the Legends and Hasbro, just because I think we both are a little more into that, like, posable play with them style. I feel like McFarlane's are very much so you kind of get them in one pose. Maybe you move them a little bit, but I don't know. I don't really like the more like, I know Todd leans towards that like statue style, which I don't really love myself. I mean, there's some McFarlanes that have been very good lately. You know, I've got that first appearance Superman, the Batman. I really wouldn't be too sad, though, to be honest. If somebody else was doing DC, I'd be open to seeing them take a crack at it. I would be way more bummed, I think, about Hasbro losing Marvel than I would be about McFarlane losing DC. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think as far as like the companies going, like proving their worth to keep what they have currently, I think Marvel Legends is crushing it. Like, I know people are upset about the reusing of bodies, and I don't know how many times Hasbro has to say it, or we have to repeat what Hasbro says of why they do that, that it's necessary. But that doesn't bother me at all. Like, I think Hasbro is doing an amazing job with everything that they're doing right now. Like, there's very rarely there's figures that I don't necessarily want in my collection that I don't maybe have an attachment to, or I already have a different version of that character that I like. But there hasn't really been any characters or figures that they've put out that I'm like, oh, that's just like a downright bad figure. Like, I said it all the time when we were talking about that Mojo 4-pack that they tried to pull off as a 4-pack when you had that little Wolverine in there. I was like, that's dumb. But recently, they've been doing a good job. And I'll say the same thing for McFarlane. Like, I really haven't been collecting much McFarlane recently, but he's made huge strides in the like soft goods and then putting wires in the capes. Sure, there's the Joker set that's $250, and that's ridiculous, but his regular figures, I think, are still better than what they like. I think he's had improvements in his figures, so I think, and he's probably got an even easier job of showing that like his things sell, because I think, I don't know how it all works, but I thought that his stuff was like in the system as more of like one singular line, where Hasbro's is like this wave, so that's why his stuff tends to show up doing better like at the end of the year when they do the like most sold action figures are usually DC Multiverse. But I think that's kind of like, it's an umbrella thing where it's like, sure, maybe his Build-A-Figure waves are like their own separate category, but he's only got like one of those a year. So again, I don't know, I could just be guessing there, but that's kind of my understanding of how those numbers work. As far as McFarlane getting the Marvel license, I think would be fun for all of a year, and then I'd be sick of it.
Well, and I guess, though, that's us assuming, like, would he, if he did that, would he be like, I'm going to make these toys the exact same way I do current McFarlane figures? I guess you'd assume that.
I would think, because everything he makes is kind of in that vein of, like, he does the Witcher stuff, he does Mortal Kombat, he does Warhammer, and they're all very
I guess that's fair.
Similar. So I don't think we would see him switch over to, like, a Hasbro style of figure making. But that's kind of what I'm saying, is, like, I would love to see both of these companies doing each other's projects. Like, I think McFarlane could make an incredible Ghost Rider. I'd love to see him do some of those, like him doing a Blackheart would probably be way cooler than what Marvel Legends is doing. And I like what Marvel Legends is doing.
I definitely buy a Todd Venom.
True. Like, there are characters that I would love to see him do.
Or my Battle Damage Spider-Man, Dakota, finally.
Maybe, but I was thinking, like, Spider-Man would be a terrible McFarlane figure, because you're going to have the diaper, and there's going to be all the, like, he's not going to be all that posable. I guess
you're right.
So it's like,
well, maybe he'd make an exception for me.
Like, you need, like, somebody with, like more of the, like, he could do a good Man-Spider.
Frankencastle, even, I dare say.
Yes, those are good ones. Like, Swamp Thing, or is it Man Thing? Yeah, you said Man Thing, but like those kind of more like creatures, or like Blade with like the jackets. You need like leathers, spikes. More like you could probably do a
kind of like your wardrobe.
Right. Yeah. Lots of leather, spikes, belts.
Like, finally, my style is on a figure.
Right. But I don't think he could do those like Spider-Man spandex suit characters. Like, Marvel Legends does those smooth looks a lot better than they do. I think their like jackets aren't always the best. So, and I think I would love to see, I think much more likely, I would like to see the DC license go to somebody that's more Hasbro-like. I don't think Hasbro can get it if they're keeping the Marvel license, kind of like they had said in those videos. It's, you can't have two competing companies under the same toy maker, which I still wish you could, because I think if you did, then that would open up the door to Amalgamation comic, and then you could get Dark Claws and action figure.
Right.
I don't think it'll ever happen. It's just wishful thinking. But
right.
They were saying some other companies like Jazzwares, Jada. I would love to see Jada get the DC license. But yeah, I definitely want more of the like Hasbro style DC figures more than I want the McFarlane style Marvel figures.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think if there were more Hasbro in that vein of DC, I would buy a lot more DC stuff. I mean that. I think those characters for me and what I prefer in a figure lends itself to that style. More posing, more that dynamic stuff you can change around. I mean, you're lucky to like be able to get your McFarlanes in like 3 poses, maybe if you're really creative. So, to me, that's not as cool. But yeah, I'd be much more excited for sure about DC changing than I would be about Marvel. Because yeah, it's like really, I think you'd be hard pressed to really make a good argument for like Hasbro is legitimately failing the Marvel line in these ways, and then it could be better.
Right.
Because yeah, I agree, they've been doing really well, and I think McFarlane's been doing some cool stuff. I don't think it would be. I don't know. Yeah, there's some figures it'd be fun to see him do, but I think long term, I would probably be buying a lot fewer. So I don't know. Maybe there's some world where then, Dakota, we could start putting that money towards those hot toys. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe I was thinking it would just give me more money for my Mythic Legions, but that's true.
Go.
I think I would be worried if Marvel stays with Hasbro, but DC moves to like Jada, then that's going to be almost an issue for me because I'm going to want Marvel and DC figures now. Whereas right now I can select my couple a year from McFarlane that I really want.
Sames.
But like I said, if I would switch over, as much as I buy Marvel Legends now, I would probably buy DC. But at the same time, that was another point that I think it was Bobby Vallo was making, or maybe it was in the other videos I was watching, but they were talking about how Hasbro is really focusing more, or it seems like they're focusing really a lot more on their own properties. Like G.I. Joe, they own G.I. Joe. And you look at the G.I. Joe figures and what they come with for the same price as what a Marvel figure comes with, and the G.I. Joes are getting the treatment. Like, those are good figures. Like, I don't collect G.I. Joe, but I wish I did because they're great. But and also with Marvel, they were talking about, like, the point was made that they're not doing any HasLabs this upcoming year. Does that mean they're trying to, like, kind of, like, not have a HasLab campaign so that they don't have to fulfill something after they maybe move the license to somebody else? I don't know if you think there's any, maybe.
I don't really think I buy that as a valid justification.
Okay.
I mean, I think it makes sense, especially with them kind of experimenting with this made-to-order thing. To me, that seems more like, again, what we've talked about is maybe we don't need to do the HasLab treatment for as many figures, or we can reconfigure a little bit, or kind of take it away and then bring it back. So yeah, I don't really buy into that as much. I think maybe with the Star Wars thing that could make sense, but I think with Marvel, I think they seem to be doing pretty okay, I would say.
Yeah. I would say, to that same point of, like, I think what's, like, with the Engine of Vengeance not funding, like, they put all that time and effort and money into creating that offering that never got to be made. So that's all just down the toilet for them pretty much. They had Giant Man that it funded, but it was pretty close to the end there, and it didn't even max fund. So I think they probably saw those and where they were like, if we're going to put all this time and energy into this stuff, like, it should probably just get made and made to order. So that way they still can cover their selves and they don't have to put anything on clearance when it's that big. But they still are able to collect that money from the fans. So that's probably more where I would see that. I don't really see that as, like,
they're
the downfall of the brand.
And I think we both prefer that made-to-order model for some things. I think it's a really cool idea. So I'm excited to see them still doing that. But yeah, I hope it sticks with Hasbro, I gotta say, Dakota. That's my ultimate wish.
Yeah, I wonder if they could keep the Marvel license but give up the Star Wars license, because it seems like I just don't even think that maybe it's Disney kind of putting stipulations on Hasbro or something. But yeah, the Star Wars figures really just are very meh in their offerings compared to even Marvel. And I think the fans all feel that way, like you were saying with Black Series. Like, they want to be collecting Star Wars, but it's just not worth it. So I wonder if Disney would split and do like Marvel with them and then send Star Wars to somebody else. So I don't know. Possible, but... And I think, especially too with switching back over to McFarlane, I think he's got so many lines of the DC figures that it would be hard to take those, because he's got the superpowers, which are like the 3 3/4 size. He's got the 6-inch, kind of like the animated series Batman stuff. Right. He's got the 7-inch with the DC Multiverse, and then even within that, he's got the DC Multiverse. He's got DC Direct. He's got collector edition type stuff. So I wondered, and I think that was another point somebody was making too, is like, did he diversify the DC offering enough within himself to be like, oh, I'll give the 6-inch to somebody else, but I'm keeping the 7-inch and 3 3/4, or something like that, where it's like he doesn't have to give up everything, but then he still gets to keep some of it. So interesting.
Hard to say.
Let us know down in the comments what you think. Where would you want these licenses to go if you could choose? Make sure you're liking, sharing, subscribing. Make sure you're entered to win the Mythic Legion figure. We're going to be giving that away shortly. And until next time, stay strong. Can you hear Penny snoring? Here, I'm going to put the microphone over by her. She's sleeping next to me.
Now I definitely hear it. Damn, dude.
Right.
I hope
post.
I hope to someday sleep that good. She is getting a good snooze.
She's got a whole blanket on her. Let me see if
That is adorable.